welcome. Thanks for coming. So just to let you know, we typically do a topic every month here at this location. We have notebooks with the schedule in it, and there's also a little stand up there with all the dates for the rest of the year. Our next seminar here in March is going to be, basically it's driving through the ages. It's also called Driving with Dignity. So it's about, as we age and being able to safely drive and navigate. So hope you guys will sign up for that one. There's a sheet over there if you want to sign up. And then, so for those that don't know me, I'm StephanieParson, so I'm a full-time realtor. And we created this seminar series a little over 2 years ago. We discovered there's a lot of lack of information and misinformation out there, and we try to bring in reputable, honest people with integrity that are going to give you good information to help with late in life decisions. So my team and I have over 50 years in real estate experience. Most of you know Sharon. She's been here for quite a while. New member to our team, this is Gabe. And our helper, Mr. Dominic, back there. So,
good to see y'all again.
Yeah, so thank you guys for always coming and helping out. So today we have a wonderful, wonderful woman here who is just a wealth of knowledge, all things senior related. So I'm really happy to have you here, Cheryl. We've got handouts, we have an evaluation, and we're gonna do a little, what do you call it, experiment? Interactive exercise, okay? All right, so, and then we normally hold questions, do you?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, all right. So we will allow for questions at the end for Cheryl. She does have more handouts, information at the end. If you want to talk with her, pick up more information, that would be great. And if you could put your cell phones on silent, that would be awesome, okay? All right, so without further ado, let's get started. So our special guest here today is Cheryl Wilson, and she has a really, really long bio, all kinds of things. So,
They have a copy of it.
yeah. So she's been, you have a master's degree in gerontology, okay? You live, Fallon, local area here. You've been the director of Ombudsman Services at Voice. Was.
17 years.
Yeah. And we've had actually Chin's been in before too, so.
He replaced
Yeah, so you might want to turn your microphone on.
I just haven't used it.
Okay, all right, okay. So, she's an author of several books. She does teaching, coaching to people in the field and to individual people, and an advocate for seniors. So what else would you like to add?
I forgot. So my primary thing that I do is educate professionals on working with people with dementia or who are in long-term care. My specialty is long-term care and dementia. My favorite people in the whole world are those with dementia. Those are my people, okay? I understand them, which probably is not good. But I do all kinds of case management, and typically the case management I do is I get the cases when everybody gives up, okay? And the case manager will call and say, I don't know how to help this person, will you help them? So those are typically the cases I take on because there's a lot of really good case managers out there. So I typically wait until they've done everything they can and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then it's call Cheryl.
So you get the hardest
I get the hardest, and that's what I thrive on. Because I know, being the director of the Ombudsman for 17 years, I know all the good and the bad about all the facilities, and I also know all the state and federal laws that govern them. So when it comes to me, I know that everyone's done their best, and now it's time to take out the big guns and be more direct on what that person needs. But like I said, my favorite thing is the education for families and professionals. So that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, we're going to focus on dementia. So great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started.
How many people here have a loved one with dementia? How many people know people with dementia? Okay, so the exercise we're going to do today is really for anyone who has anything to do with somebody who's experiencing memory loss, okay? And what we're going to do first is an interactive exercise, because I figure, why should I do all the work? You know, let's get you all involved. But when I talk to professionals, especially the professionals, they kind of think, well, you know, I went to school for 10 years, you know, I know all this stuff. And they do. But until that knowledge gets to their heart, it doesn't really sink in, and you don't see all the changes that you need to. So the exercise we're going to do today is what I do with a lot of professional people, to take head knowledge, make it heart knowledge, and we go from there. So you all have a packet of 12 little pieces of paper. So I'm going to have you write on the first 3 pieces of paper. I want you to write down something about yourself that you really like. Just one word. You could say beautiful, intelligent, honest, whatever you want. So the first 3 pieces of paper, just write something you really like about yourself. We need paper up here. We need a packet up here. Yeah, you are. I'm sorry. Yeah, gotcha. You're very welcome. Then, on the next 3 pieces of paper, I want you to write down something that you own, a monetary value that's very important. It could be a wedding ring. It could be your house, a car, something of monetary value that's very, very important to you. Yeah, 3 on the next 3 pieces of paper.
Oh, you're right. 3 things.
No, on 1 piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper, 3. 1 thing on 3 pieces of paper. Okay? Okay, you want to write down something of monetary value that's very important to you. It could be a wedding ring. It could be a cookie jar, you know, that your grandmother gave you. Just 3 things that you own that are very valuable.
What if you don't have anything?
Just put 1, 2, and 3 on the page. 1 on 1, 2 on 7, because you'll need all the 12 pieces.
Something that you want that you don't have. That you don't want anything. Okay. Your neighbor surely has something to write down. Borrow one from them.
Then on the next 3 pieces of paper, I want you to write down a hobby or activity that you enjoy. 1 on the next 3 pieces of paper. So you could write something like you enjoy skiing or reading a book or a bubble bath, anything like that. Just 1 activity on the next 3 pieces of paper.
Okay, everybody got it?
And then on the last 3 pieces of paper, I want you to write down the name of people you love. So 1 could be a spouse, it could be your grandchildren, you could clump them together. But 3 people that you love, 1 on each of the last 3 pieces of paper. And once you finish, I want you to lay out all 12 pieces in front of you where you can see them. after you lay them out, I want you just to look at what you've written down. And I want you to realize that what you have said on these 12 pieces of paper are the most important things to you right now in your life, okay? That's why we've done this. So in just a minute, I'm going to read you a story. It's going to be story time. And as we go through the story, I'm going to have you do different things with that paper, okay? So what I'd like is I would like for you to close your eyes for just a minute and think as I read this first part. Think about the home or the apartment where you live. Look at the kitchen, living room, bathroom. Think about the colors in your home. Look in your closet. Look at all your clothes. Look in the drawers, at all the things you have. Look at the walls, at all the items you have hanging on them. Think of your typical day. What do you like to do in your spare time? What hobbies do you have? Or what hobbies would you like to start when you have time? Where do you go? What groups or clubs do you belong to? What makes you happy, sad, mad? Now imagine a typical nursing home room. How is it arranged? What is on the wall? What color is it? How big is the closet? How many drawers does each resident have to fill? Think about the activities in the facility. How often each day is something going on? Do the activities on the calendar sound like fun? Would you go? Are the people laughing? Imagine you live alone in your apartment. You work, drive, go out to dinner with friends. You play bunco and bridge with a club that meets twice a month. You enjoy crocheting and making quilts. You are a 40-year member of your church and attend a Bible study every month. You love to shop, especially when there's sales. You enjoy being independent. You like to get up at 5 a.m., sit by the window and read the paper, and watch the sun come up before you get ready for work. You have a cat you pamper and adore. Your children and grandchildren join you most Sundays for lunch after church. You enjoy sitting with your grandchildren when you can. Lately, you've noticed that you get short-tempered with your children and grandchildren. They seem to move too fast and talk at you, not to you. You can't always remember and follow the conversation. They lose their patience frequently with you and start questioning everything you do. Now I want you to open your eyes and I want you to look at the 12 things that you've written down as the most important things to you. And I want you to pick 2 of those items and I want you to tear them up and I want you to just set them to the side. As time goes on, you find it harder and harder for you to concentrate and follow what people are saying to you. You forget to go to your bunco game or bridge club. You miss church on Sunday because you forgot what day of the week it was. You ask your son to come over because the TV quit working. He said you have the remote control all messed up. Your cat seems to follow you around and meow constantly and you don't know why. Your son says you're forgetting to feed the cat. Your children take you to a specialist who asks you questions for hours. You get x-rays of your head and all kinds of tests. After several days, you're told you have Alzheimer's disease. You hear the words, but it doesn't mean much to you. Your children have tears in their eyes when they leave the office. Look at your 10 things. Pick 2 more items, tear them up, and set them to the side. You go back home. Your children and grandchildren seem to be coming and going all the time. They look in the cabinets, open the refrigerator, look in the bathroom and the laundry room. It makes you angry and you argue with them frequently. They tell you they're just trying to help you, but you tell them you do not need any help. One morning, your children and grandchildren come to the house. They tell you they're taking you out to lunch and sightseeing. After lunch, they take you to a building. When you enter, you realize it's a nursing home. A lady escorts you through the building, through some doors that close tightly behind you. You go into a room. Your children tell you they don't believe you can live alone anymore. They think the best place for you is this nursing home. Your children tell you not to worry, they have checked it all out and believe you will love it here. You worry about your cat. You feel the need to pray but can't go to church. Your children tell you that your cat is not welcome here, and they remind you they will take care of everything. Look at your papers, find 2 more things and tear them up. Your children are asked to go into the office and sign admission papers. 2 people you don't know examine you, talking to each other all the while. They take off your clothes and inspect your body for open sores. It is humiliating. You get angry and try to push them away. They tell you dinner will be served in an hour. Then they leave you alone. You look around. You find a small bag of clothes, but you don't recognize them. You have trouble remembering where you are and what you're doing here. You wonder where your cat is and if they're all right. You are frightened and alone. You have now lived there for 2 months. Your family visits when they can. They are busy though, and sometimes can only stay a very short time. They seem to talk to you, not with you. They change so much. Sometimes you struggle to recognize them. They don't always wait for your response when they ask you a question. Even though the administrator said it was okay for the family to bring your cat, they haven't brought your cat. You have a vague memory of the place you used to live. People come to visit you, but you have trouble remembering their names and faces. You can't remember what day or month it is. Just a short months ago, you were living alone, independent, playing with your cat, spending time with your grandchildren, going to church, playing cards, crocheting, and making quilts. Today you have no choice when you eat, and most of the time, no choice about what you eat. You are embarrassed by your appearance because sometimes the staff are too busy and forgets to comb your hair. You told them when you get up and when you go to bed. The staff says, we have to get you in bed now, whether you are tired or not. Activities are offered, but they're often very confusing. Sometimes you have to wander in when something's going on, but you get restless and can't sit for very long. Plus, you don't understand what is being said, and the staff aren't always available to sit and help you. Even though you are forgetful and have trouble thinking, how do you think we would feel about living in this facility? Would it make it better? What would make it better? Who still visits? Who would you like to visit? What do you wish you could say to them? And what do you wish they would say to you? Now look at your papers, pick 2 more items, tear them up, and set them aside. You are labeled depressed, difficult, and stubborn. Because sometimes you refuse when the staff member tries to make you do something against your will. It's not that you're stubborn, you just don't understand what they're saying to you. You prefer to stay in your room alone most of the time. You can't seem to grasp what's going on around you. You would like to play cards. If you find a deck, you could shuffle them and deal, but you can't remember what those marks on the card mean. You tried going to other activities, but they moved too fast and you couldn't follow them. You have a TV, but the staff turns on programs that mean nothing to you. People talk at you, which makes you angry. Sometimes you take a swing at people because you just can't find the words to tell them what is wrong. And they keep picking on you. Twice they have called the doctor and asked for something to help you relax, so you won't be so combative. When you refuse medication, the staff member gets frustrated and leaves the room in a huff. Your life is confusing. You have a minute when you remember something, but you can't seem to hold on to the thought. You are sad but can't figure out why. You are happy when your children visit. You don't always remember who they are, but you know them and you know that they love you. Okay, 2 more pieces of paper. Ready? Tear up. She was ready for that. She had them in her hand. So, at this point, you should have 2 pieces of paper left. These are the very most important things to you. I want you to turn them face down so you can't see them, and I want you to shuffle them. And then we're going to have Dominic and Stephanie come around and take one of those. You can't hide them under the paper. They're going to come around and take one of them from you, okay?
All right, take one from every person.
Go ahead.
Okay. Do we need to keep them in any order or anything?
No,
Doesn't
we're
matter.
not even going to look at them. We're just removing them from the choices here.
Not playing.
And she did. And just a side note, a lot of what I'm reading you is things I deal with that nursing homes do that they shouldn't, but for the purpose of the exercise.
All right, did we get everybody?
Look around the room. This is your life. Think about the possessions you have lost. What do you miss the most? Look around the room where you live in this facility. Think about the things you used to enjoy doing. What do you miss the most? Think about your family and friends. Think for a minute what it would be like to look at a child and not remember they belong to you. Think about a moment in your life when you went in a room to get something and couldn't remember what you wanted, or a time when you meet someone who seems to know you but you can't remember who they are. How would that make you feel? Now, I want you to turn over the last piece of paper. Look at it and think about it. This is all you have left in the world. Now, I want you to tear it up. It is gone. Your memories is trapped inside. While you may have moments when a thought breaks through, most of the time you can't remember the details of who you are, what kind of person you are, or your life. Why get out of bed tomorrow morning? What is the purpose of my life now? Why didn't I just die instead of getting diagnosed with this horrible disease? Now, that is the end of the exercise. I want to ask a couple of questions. What was the easiest thing to give up? Your stuff, your material stuff. I did this at a church once, and the pastor, really early on, tore up his family members. I said, now that's a terrible example. I said, why are you doing that? He said, hey, if they're putting me in this home, they're dead to me. I said, yeah, well, okay, we got to have a talk later. So, but but that's typically what the stuff is the hardest, easiest thing to get rid of. Can you imagine not recognizing a child or spouse? What feelings do you think you would have? I'm going through that with my mom. My mom's in a memory care facility, and I'm either her adopted daughter, her crazy daughter, or not her daughter at all. And, you know, and I know she knows me, but, you know, it hurts. It really hurts when a parent doesn't know their child. And even though you know that they can't help it, and you know that they love you, because when I walk on the memory care unit, she goes, there she is, she's mine, she's mine, she's mine, but she has no idea who I am. So what we're going to do now, did you enjoy that exercise?
No.
It's a really, really hard exercise, isn't it? But the purpose of this exercise is to make you understand what people with dementia are going through, what it feels like. And if you did this correctly, it was a very difficult exercise to do. It hurt. I had people in tears by the end of this exercise because they're realizing what that spouse or friend is going through, and it hurts. But it does make you better when you try to deal with them because you have a better understanding of their loss, okay? So we're done torturing you now with that kind of stuff.
That was not fun.
No.
That was really...
It should not have been easy. If it was easy, then it didn't do what it was supposed to do, okay? So now I'm going to talk a little bit about dementia and tips and tricks for communicating better with people with memory loss. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is dementia is not a normal part of aging. It's like cancer, it's like other things. People will tell me when I go to see a new client, I'll say, well, what's the diagnosis? They have dementia. Well, that tells me nothing. That's like going to someone and saying, I have cancer. Well, what kind of cancer do you have? What type of dementia do they have? Because there's different ways of dealing with different types of dementia. The most common is Alzheimer's by far, where there's very little short-term memory, but great long-term memory. I worked with a man once who I was sitting with him so his wife could go away. And as I'm sitting with him, I said, well, how did you meet your wife? He said, oh, honey, I cannot tell you that. That is top secret information. He worked for the Defense Department. I said, oh, okay. But about 20 minutes later, he looked at me, he said, however, if you want to know, I could tell you how to build a bomb. So he went in great detail on how to build a bomb, but never told me how he met his wife. So when his wife got home, I said, well, I think I'm going to go home and build a bomb, but I have no idea how you all met. So with dementia, that's the pieces get confused. There's no rational thought. They lose the ability to rationalize and process normal thought, and they're never wrong. Just hang it up. The only one in this group now that can change in this scenario is you. They cannot change. So the most common type is the Alzheimer's, and followed by vascular and Lewy bodies, and they're all very different types, and some of them come with different behaviors or more likely to have aggressive behaviors than others. And you know, you can't tell anyone how Alzheimer's is going to affect them because it just depends on what part of the brain gets attacked with each person. It's a very individualized disease. So one thing I try to push on professionals is that people with dementia do not have behavior problems. I get so tired of being called into facilities and situations because someone has a behavior problem. They do not have behavior problems. They have communication problems. They can't tell you that they have to go to the bathroom, so they may get really fidgety and anxious and start pacing and doing things because they have to go to the bathroom and they don't know what to do. They may wander in a room that they're not supposed to be in and get yelled at by the person, and this may make them mad, so things can happen. They may wander. I will tell you, if somebody is wandering, there's a reason for the wandering, okay? They just don't wander for exercise. There's something going on. Why do you think that women tend to wander around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What do you think they're doing? That's it. They're trying to get their kids off the school bus, because that's what they did every day, is they met their children at the school bus and brought them home. So if you have a loved one or you're working with someone and every day at 3 o'clock they try to head out the door, they're probably going to get their kids off the school bus, okay? So what I will do is I will say, you know what, your sister is going to get them off the school bus today, or they're going home with a friend, or they've got an activity, and the behavior stops because they know the kids are okay. They're just doing their job as a mom. So one example I was really interesting, a lot of times nursing homes will call me and say, we got this man and he's got this behavior, and if we can't get him to stop, we're just going to have to discharge him. I said, well, let me come and see what's going on. So I went to this one facility, and this man every day at 2 o'clock headed out the door. Well, they said, you know, we can't have him eloping, and we can't have a one-on-one with him. You know, we're going to have to discharge him. I said, well, before you do that, I want you to call his family and find out what his job was. And they said, well, that's crazy. I said, just do it for me. So they did, and they said, well, that was not helpful. He was a used car salesman. I said, okay. Call them back and try to get a coworker or where he used to work, and I want you to ask them, was there something this man did every day at 2 o'clock? So then they called me back. They said, you are not going to believe this. Every day at 2 o'clock was his time to check the lot. This man wasn't trying to elope or leave. He was doing his job. So I then told him, find out the name of coworkers and go to him at 1:45 and tell them that John is going to check the lot today. You do not need to. And the behavior stopped. Okay? There are reasons that people are wandering. And as for myself as a professional or as a family member who knows their history, you need to look in the history and try to get to what they're trying to do. And once you know that, oftentimes you can get to the bottom of it. Another example was I was in a facility for something else and I got paged. There was a lady on the memory care unit who was just aggressively started pacing up and down the hall. And they did not know what was wrong with her. So they called me over there. And so the first thing I did was just match her pace up and down the hall and walked up and down with her. And then I looked over and I said, well, what's your name? And she told me. And I said, what are you doing? What's wrong? She said, the teacher will not let me in school. I said, well, what grade are you in? She said, well, I'm in 4th grade, which told me where she was cognitively. And then I said, well, why won't the teacher let you in school? She said, because my hands are dirty. And I said, well, let me see your hands. So she took them out of her pocket and they were covered with dry stool. And I said, you know what? I know someone who can take care of that for you. So I took her up to the nurse's station and they soaked her hands. And when I came back on the unit, she was sitting at the table with other ladies just talking. So again, she couldn't say, I need my hands washed. So it came out with an aggressively pacing up and down the hall. There is a reason people wander. We need to stop worrying about it and find out what they're trying to tell us.
Like peeling the onion, that's what we call it.
Right.
You know,
Going down the layers.
Getting to the root of the real problem there, what's going on.
So when we're working with people with dementia, one thing that I've learned, and I'm even learning this more with my mom, is you have to learn to ask questions in terms they understand. If you just ask like you were talking to me or someone else, it may not click with them. So you have to keep asking the same question in different ways. And I'll give you an example of that. And this is a hard example to share because it involves abuse. But when I was with the Ombudsman, I was the director of their abuse program. And when there were allegations of abuse, I would be called in to do assessments and to provide victim services. So I got called to a facility, and there was a lady who had been abused, and they kept saying, she keeps saying she's married, and we know she's not married. Her husband died like 20 years ago. We don't know why she started saying she's tired of being married. So I went to talk to her, and as we're talking, she said, you know, I just don't want to be married anymore. And I said, well, what about that is, why not? And I kept asking, and finally I said this. I looked at her, I said, what does being married mean to you? Was my fourth way of asking it. She said, I don't want him getting in bed with me anymore at night. So it had turned out that a staff person had told her they were married so he could get in bed with her at night. So we were able to address that, get rid of him, and get her counseling. But it took asking 4 or 5 times, changing the way I asked the question until it triggered in her head. And she said, I don't want him getting in bed with me anymore. So she was tired of being married and she wanted a divorce. So now she's speaking out. But you know, people with dementia are very vulnerable and make the perfect victims. So you have to really be careful with them. So when you have people with dementia, redirecting them is very key in everything that you do. So one of the biggest problems people will have is somebody will say, and my mom does this, she goes, why isn't my mother visiting me? You know, we were together all the time. I want to see my mom. Where is my mom, Cheryl? And, you know, the one thing you do not want to say is your mom is dead. Because if you tell them that, they relive the initial loss of that person over and over and over every time you say that. So when she's telling me, where is my mom? I want my mom to visit. What I hear her saying is, I'm thinking about my mom. So I start asking her questions about her mom. You know, what was your favorite thing to do with your mother? Tell me your favorite story about your mom. And she'll start talking about mom. And as she's talking about her, she's getting that need met. And if she keeps pursuing, I'll say, well, you know, your mom lives in Kentucky. So I'll see if I can reach her. You know, my clients who do not have cognitive issues, I never lie to them. They are told the cold truth. People with dementia, sometimes you have to tell them what they need to hear to get them through. So if that doesn't work with my mom, I'll say, well, let me call her. And as soon as I say that, she'll say, okay. And she's on that's all she needed to hear, and we go on. So redirecting is very important. If somebody wants to go outside and they are set on going outside, you know, go outside, walk around, walk down the driveway or the parking lot and come back in. I had a situation where this gentleman on a memory care unit, his job was to bring in the newspaper every day. That was his job, and he got up and he did his job every day. Well, one day there was an ice storm, so the staff brought in the paper. Well, when that man got up and couldn't go outside and saw the paper, he had a catastrophic reaction to someone doing his job. So what we decided to do was, if that ever happened again, we would put cardboard down and put the paper right outside the door so he could just reach down and get it, because we were not taking his job away from him, okay? And that's a way to resolve that. So redirection is very, very important. You got to get in, figure out what the problem is, and then resolve the problem. And you have to learn to laugh, okay? This is a tough, tough disease. If you don't laugh, you're not going to make it, okay? So one of my favorite stories, which is, I think I put in my first book, I had a lady, her name was Zelma, and she was in a nursing home. She was not in memory care. They didn't really have memory cares back then. I've done this 27 years now. And she would go in and out of people's room, and they'd yell at her, and she'd come out. It was just a daily thing. So I'm walking down the hall one day, and Zelma's coming out of a room. She's in her wheelchair. She's wheeling out. And I hear the lady in the room yelling at her. And I heard the lady say, "Zelma, you just go to hell." And my little lady, as she is wheeling herself out, looked over her shoulder, and she said, "You know, I've been there, and I don't like the way you run it." And I looked at Zelma, I said, Zelma, if anyone ever tells me to go to hell, that is what I'm telling them. But she wasn't trying to be funny or sarcastic. It's just the first thing she thought of, and it came out of her mouth. Another day I was on a memory care unit, and this man whom I was not there to see, when you're on memory care, you're likely to be approached by anyone. So this gentleman comes running up to me, and mind you, I have staff on both sides of me. A lot of times when I go in nursing homes, I'll hear, the state has just walked in the building. I was never the state, I was the ombudsman. But they like to follow me around. I don't know what they think I'm gonna do, but sometimes they do. So I was there that day, they were fine. I had staff on both sides of me as I'm doing my job. And I walk on the memory care unit, and this man comes running up to me. He said, I am so excited. Do you know what today is? I said, no, what is today? He said, today at 2 o'clock, I am being cremated and I cannot wait. And now mind you, the staff on both sides of me are, and I looked right at the man, I said, well, happy cremation day to you. And he said, thank you, and off he goes. And the staff look at me like I'm crazy. They said, do you know what he said? I said, yeah, I know exactly what he said, but I really don't think you all cremate on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock here. So I'm guessing he had his words confused, and why would I shame him?
Right.
He came to me happy, he left happy, that is your job.
What a good response. I mean,
I'm known to be a quick thinker. So one of the things that just recently happened with my mom was I have a disabled brother who moved in with me after my mom went in a nursing home, which is quite the story itself because I lived alone for 30 years. And now I have a special needs brother living with me. So we were visiting my mom, and we were in her room, and she had all these pictures of my dad on her dresser. And she looked at him and she said, Gary, that is your daddy.
that's your what?
Daddy, that is
Okay.
your daddy. And I looked at her, I said, well, that's my daddy too. And she looked right at me and she said, Cheryl, I have no idea who your daddy is. I said, Mom, you were married 60 years. That is my daddy. She said, Cheryl, I don't know. Oh, well, okay. So, you gotta laugh or you're gonna go crazy, folks. Another thing, that you have to remember that people with dementia are no longer able to process things like we do. So we must go into their world and be part of their world. But people tell me all the time, Cheryl, you do great at going in the world. You're not too quick to come back out, though. I said, hey. So another big problem families have is with fixations. They get fixated on things. They may ask the same question over and over and over and over, or the same phrase. And I recently was caring for a lady whose family would get so frustrated because all she wanted to talk about was playing the piano at First Baptist Church. And she, over and over and over. And it was driving them crazy. I said, be thankful her fixation is going to church. Most of my clients, their fixation is their bowel and bladder schedule, you know. So if you have something as pleasant as playing the piano at church, be very thankful that that's what it is. But again, when she would do that with me, what I would do is I would say, well, why don't we go into the other room and you can play me a song on the piano? Because that's what she's thinking about, okay? So that's what we did. And this lady was 99 years old and she could still play the piano perfectly. Music is a different part of the brain than communication. A lot of times when people cannot talk or communicate, they can still sing songs. Part of my assessment with people is playing songs of their generation and seeing how they react. Because songs can be very comforting to people, and it's something that a lot of times they don't think to do. So fixations are very common. I had a lady in the nursing home and we would lose her. I mean, this lady was just everywhere in her wheelchair. But I knew her fixation was a song. So when we would lose her, I would literally stand in the middle of the nurses' station and just sing, over there, send the boys over there. And then somewhere in the building we hear, 'cause the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming. And we just follow the tune, and there she was. So, it's just learning the tricks of the trade, and not getting frustrated yourself. Telling somebody with dementia to stop doing something is never going to work because they're not the problem. You are the problem, okay? Just know you are the problem. One day I went to get my mom heater up some soup, and I opened the microwave and there was a light bulb in the microwave. I said, Mom, why do you have a light bulb in the microwave? To which she said, Cheryl, it wasn't there before you came. Why did you put a light bulb in the microwave? And I'm thinking, I so badly want to comment on this, but I knew I couldn't. So I said, well, I've taken out now, and I'll make you some soup. About a month ago at the nursing home, I opened her refrigerator, and there was her cell phone. I said, why is your cell phone in the refrigerator? Well, why did you put it there, Cheryl? I don't know, but I've taken it out. So they're never wrong. They do not have the ability to change. So what I tell people is you have to learn to pick your battles. If it is something that is not going to endanger them or someone else, then let it go. If it is something that could be potentially harmful to the person, then you need to address it. The best example of that in the whole world was a client I had. I'm the senior advocate at 2 churches, and I was helping this family. And this gentleman's wife had dementia. So I went and I talked to him, you gotta pick your battles, because he was a chef and he wanted his wife to put those spoons in the dishwasher. I said, that ship has sailed. She's not going to do that. Oh, yes, she is. Oh, no, she's not. I said, why don't you get plastic silverware? Oh, no, she needs to put those in the dishwasher. I said, well, good luck with that because she will not do that. And it's only going to frustrate you. You need to let that go. So the next visit I had with him, he said, I did what you said. I picked my battles. It was wonderful. I said, okay, let me hear what you did. She said, well, she got up early one morning and made breakfast, which she never did because he was a chef and he always cooked. But she decided to make breakfast, so she made French toast. But she used moldy bread. So he took a bite of it and spit it out. He said, but I picked my battles, I let her eat it, and I just got something else. I said, oh my gosh, you let her eat moldy bread? Well, yeah, you said to pick your battles. I said, she could have gotten very ill from that. That's a battle you should have picked. So he did not remain my client too much longer after that because I could not get through to him at all. So, pick your battles.
At least 10 more minutes. Yeah.
Before we stop the question. Okay. So, if you learn to pick your battles, and it may drive you crazy, some of the things they do, but if it's not hurting them or someone else, let it go. It's not worth it. It is not worth it.
It's kind of like, I relate that to, raising my kids. And that it was like, as long as they, they want to pick their own things out and they may not match and look crazy. And it's just like, it's just not worth fighting over, as long as they're dressed for the season, who cares, But it used to make me, we used to go round and round about that with one of them especially.
The other thing people talk about is auditory or visual hallucinations. So this is something you never want to do medication if you don't have to. So if what the hallucination is not something that's frightening them or causing them anxiety, you don't need to medicate it. And you need to make sure it's real before you do. This did not happen in Missouri. I always have to preface this with that. There was a case where a lady who was in a nursing home told the staff she saw snakes in the ceiling. And they said, oh my goodness, she's hallucinating, let's get her medicated. So they did. And a couple weeks later, a 10-foot boa constrictor dropped from the ceiling of that facility. And then I'm thinking, well, your question now is, she said snakes was plural, are there more? So, that was, and it wasn't bothering her. She just made the comment. And they went and got her medicated and all this stuff. She didn't need that. She was just making a comment. So another case we had was someone who kept seeing people outside their door. And so when I went and looked at the room, one thing I noticed was there was a big bush outside their door that when it would get windy or rain or storm, those branches could hit that window. So what they were seeing or hearing was the branches at night. So what I suggest is you need to have their eyes checked and their ears checked, because what they're hearing and seeing is not a hallucination. They're hearing that branch hit the window, or just have someone cut that branch off so it doesn't do that anymore. So it's really important, because if you can't hear correctly, you may misunderstand what someone is saying and you give the wrong answer, and all of a sudden they think you have dementia. You don't have dementia, you have a hearing problem. So whenever anyone starts to have problems with confusion, you want to have their hearing tested and their eyes tested to make sure it's not that, because that's much easier fixed. So other tips, never force your will on them. Never tell them that force them to do something. The best gift you can give to someone with dementia is to give them as much control of their life as they can manage, okay? Even if when you get them up in the morning, instead of getting them dressed, say, would you like to wear the green dress or the blue one today? You've given them a choice about their day that gives them control over their life. And the more control they have of their life, the better their day is going to be. And the better their day is, the better your day is going to be. So, and like I said, never argue with them. You will never win. I've tried many times. You're not going to win. And pick your battles. The last thing I want to do before we open it up for questions is read you something that I wrote. I've written 5 different poems, and I will have a sign up over there, and if you want them, just sign your name and I'll email them to you. But each one is written after some situation with a client. And the one I'm going to read you now, this lady was 94 years old, and her family didn't value her anymore, never came to visit or anything like that, and she was just crushed. So after I talked to her, I sat down and I wrote this, and it's called I'm Not Done Yet. I may be 60, 70, 80, 90, or over 100 years old, but I'm not done yet. My hair may be thin, gray, or I may have no hair at all, but I'm not done yet. My vision may be lacking or may be gone, but I'm not done yet. My hearing may be fading, or I may not be able to hear you, but I'm not done yet. My bones may be brittle. I may walk with a limp or a cane, or maybe I'm in a wheelchair, but I'm not done yet. My mind may fade in and out, or I may forget things, but I'm not done yet. I do have life experience and the wisdom to know that life lessons are learned by the scars we carry and the valleys we go through. That's where we learn our greatest lessons. I have learned that you can't master loving people without experiencing grief. The greater we love, the greater we experience grief when we lose those we love. Although my body is aged and I may not be as quick to process and react, I can still be a valuable resource for the next generation if given a chance. Those who take advantage of my experiences can learn from them and not make the same mistakes I did, giving them time to explore new possibilities. I hope you get to experience the gift of aging and become a senior. Next time you meet a senior, instead of seeing what they have lost over time, think of all you can learn from them. Think of seniors in wheelchairs as wisdom sitting in a chair, and take advantage of all they have to share. If we work together hand in hand, we can make this world a better place for all. Remember, I'm not done yet. So, yes.
Oh, are you ready for questions?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm ready for questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I've done a lot of caregiving over time, And the biggest problems I had was working with a dementia patient because of the anger. And I never was successful in dealing with that. I mean, I had a client who just ripped me up one side and down the other, hated me, hated my family, didn't know me, and it just wouldn't stop. When they get combative, how do you deal with that?
When they get combative, the first thing you need to do is eliminate all the stimulus you can. A lot of times when people get combative, the TV's on, there's 3 or 4 people trying to do something with them. Remove everything you can remove. A lot of times when people are combative, if you can isolate them in an area, they can de-escalate themselves. Now, if they're in danger of hurting themselves, still eliminate everything you can. And because they're overstimulated and they're getting more and more frustrated. That's a tough one, and that's more common with like Lewy bodies. You have more of the aggression than you do, and if that's what you're dealing with a frontal temporal dementia as opposed to Alzheimer's, you're more likely going to have those difficult behaviors. So that, again, you need the doctor to be on top of that so that they can give you things to help with that. But you really need to control their environment, and you need to do it when you first start seeing them get agitated. I had a lady that when I worked at a nursing home, that would go from 0 to 50, and she could hurt people. But she loved me, and she called me Harry. So whenever things got really bad, she would ask for Harry, and they would find me, and I'd walk in a room, and there would be like 4 nurses trying to contain her. And as soon as she'd see me, she said, "Oh, Harry, you can't believe what they're doing to me." And I said, "Everybody out of the room. Me and Agnes need to talk." And as soon as they left, she would calm down, and I was able. There's usually 1 or 2 people that they really connect with, but combative is hard, so eliminate as much stimulation as you can.
I know my father-in-law, he got very combative and he would hurt himself. So he actually had to wear a helmet because they could not stop him from that behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, all this depends on what part of the brain's attacked. I have pastors who never cursed a day in their life start cursing like sailors. And their wives are mortified. They'll say, "My mom was like that. My mom, we weren't allowed to say stupid or dumb or anything because those were bad words." And now she said a couple of things, and I look at her and say, "What?" She goes, "Do you really think I don't know those words, Cheryl?" You know, because they lose their filters and anything comes out. Were you going to ask something?
I was. Is Parkinson's prone to developing?
There is a Parkinson's dementia, okay, that goes along with Parkinson's. There's no exact number, but there's over 100 different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common, but there's dementias that go specifically with Alzheimer's. There's dementias that go with people who have drug and alcohol. There's dementias that go with all different kinds of things. So yes, Parkinson's is a tough one. And the thing with Parkinson's, whether it's dementia or not, just Parkinson's, if you have someone with Parkinson's, they absolutely have to have their medicine on time. That's the one disease. Nursing homes have an hour before, hour after window that they can give medicine. But if you have Parkinson's, that is not going to work. It has to be on time.
So Parkinson's dementia is separate from Lewy bodies? I thought Lewy bodies was...
Well, Parkinson's has a dementia called Parkinson's dementia.
Okay.
That does not mean someone with Parkinson's may not get Lewy bodies, okay? Because Lewy bodies is a very specific dementia, and it's a very tough dementia to deal with.
It doesn't link with Parkinson's at all?
No, it can, but it's not automatically Parkinson's. It's other things too. Yes.
What's the best way to go about preventing anything like this, if possible? Any sort of supplements or anything else that can at least alleviate or reduce the
There's
risk?
nothing I would recommend. There's all kinds of things. You can go online and see all these things. This is going to help with me. I don't know of anything that's proven to work with it. I do know there's drugs like Namenda and Aricept that if you take it early on, will level someone off and delay the decline longer. It won't stop it, but it can level it off. Yes.
Do you remember I think 2014, Julianne Moore, Still Alice?
I've seen that,
And
yeah.
the neurologist says you got an iPhone, you get yourself 6 months to a year. The people I knew, I go back to 15 years ago, I'd go to school reunions. The people that said, oh, I learned to use the computer back in 1983 on the loading dock, but I don't need that now. They're the ones with the dementia, it seems like. It is
Yeah,
stay up with technology.
they
get
typically
stuff.
say people with higher education are less prone, but they get it too.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, and it's not just, you know, the older you are, the more likely to get it,
Right.
but I work with people over 100 who are sharper than I am.
Right.
It is a disease. It is like cancer. It is not automatic.
Right, but he said you got another 6 months. He didn't say you got another 6 years.
Right.
It would just, you can do things, but when it hits, it hits. I'm aware of that.
They say, you know, working puzzles, doing things to keep your mind active does help. My mom, who's on a memory care unit, loves puzzles, and she's very concerned that I don't do puzzles. I said, Mom, I hate puzzles. I hate them. And believe me, my mind is more active. My mind could be less active, and I would be just fine. Okay, yes.
Is it genetic?
Some types are genetic. Typically, the people who get it younger is the genetic link, okay? My mom got it at like 70, and that's a good point too, because a lot of times people may have it for 5, 8 years before they're diagnosed with it. People with dementia in the early stages are great manipulators. And one of the keys to look for if you suspect people may be having memory issues is look around the house and see how many notes are written. People, when they start to write a lot of notes and they're everywhere, that's a sign that they're having memory issues. And it is even more of a sign when they write the notes and then they don't know why they wrote the note or where the note they wrote is, but they wrote the note. Another good example is there's a video done by Topeka Snow called Normal Memory Loss versus Dementia. And one of the things she does is, it's hilarious, it's really cute, is when she walks in the kitchen, there's a bottle that's about 3/4 of the way drunk of water on the counter. And someone with dementia may walk in and look at that bottle and say, I knew it. I've been telling them there's people sneaking in my house and drinking in the water, and here is the proof. They didn't even throw it away. That's a dementia response, okay? Other questions? Yes.
Is there a lifespan connected with the dementia?
Not in gold. I mean, my mom's had it for like 12 years. Usually they say about 10 for Alzheimer's, but you don't know. It just depends. It's very individual on how quickly it attacks the brain. You just don't know. Now, also people with dementia, and this is my mom too, has sundowners. So around 3 o'clock, they get a lot more confused, okay? So if I have a hard time talking to her, and I usually see her every day from 2 to 5, so around 3, things get really interesting. And I was on the memory care, and I was sitting at a table with 3 other ladies, and they were also, I mean, they were talking in a conversation like we would do. They would, you know, they stopped at the right times and everything, just sounded perfect. And then they turned to me and said, well, what do you think, Cheryl? So, well, I agree, I think that's a good idea. And they said, really? You would do that? I said, well, maybe not, because I have no idea what they're talking about. So in closing, I do want to let you know that I do have my books. My first book is called I Am the Resident, Becoming the Advocate for Your Loved One's Needs. If you have someone in a facility, that's a great book. It tells you all your rights that they don't tell you, because a facility policy can't violate a resident right. The other one I brought today is A Complete Guide to Moving Someone into a Long-Term Care Facility. I've got a sign up if you want a copy of the poems. I got a link to my books. If you just want to go online and look at them, you can do that also. So I really appreciate you all coming out today. And anything else?
Yes, I need help with something, if you guys can tolerate this. It's a personal thing. So, my dad, he's in a long-term care community. He frequently calls me and we have the same conversation. It is bring my duffel bag over so I can put my shit in it, so you can take me to Spanish Lake so I can buy a house. And it's the same thing over and over.
And what do you say to him?
Okay, Dad, all right. Okay, so how you doing today? And just kind of change the subject. Ironically, most of the time when I go and see him in person, he doesn't bring it up. When I asked the community for some help on that, because I didn't know how to navigate it, the one lady said, well, I just wouldn't answer the phone.
Well, not a good answer.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do you have any?
Well, I mean, something like that. He's obviously, when he's not with you, he's thinking he wants to leave and go back. Did he live there prior? So he's going back with dementia. You learn what you lose last in life first, so you digress. You go backwards. So he's back to the time where he lived there. That was probably a really good time of his life. And he was thriving when he lived there. And he wants to go back and live that life again, which we know is not going to happen. I would ask him, let him talk about it. Say, well, what exactly are you looking for in Spanish Lake? What type of house do you want? Just let him talk about those memories that are so important to him and say, well, let me see what I can do. And then when you get there, that's not there anymore. That could also be his fixation, so you may never be able to change that.
I don't think.
But you can certainly make him feel more comfortable by letting him talk about that, because that's what's on his mind then. Yes?
Do photo boards help?
For some people, they really do. My mom loves to look at the pictures. And on a lot of memory care units, they have memory boards with pictures on there for them. A lot of families will sometimes bring photo albums for them to go back and look at. Now, if my mom ever got to the point, sometimes one day she was talking to me, she said, Cheryl, I had wonderful parents. They were just amazing. How were yours? I said, you're my mom. And she goes, oh, don't you tell me when I said that. She started giggling. She's like a 5-year-old. I said, I'm telling everybody I know, Mama. So, whatever works, and like that's like with music. A lot of people really, the nursing home I have my mom in, bring in live entertainment every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And they just love it. And I take her there. Today's Wednesday, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be there today. I go every day, so, and we'll take her to the music. But other questions? Yes.
You said earlier younger, so what's the age that you...
Oh, it can be young. It can be in the 30s, 40s, 50s. It's rare to get it that young, and usually that's where the hereditary link is. And I think there is a test they can do to look for that, but a lot of people don't want to know. They really don't want to know if they have it. It's like ALS. There's a blood test, and if you have the gene, but I have some of my nieces don't want to take the test because their grandmother died of that. What were you going to say?
So there's a new blood test out where you can check to see if your amyloid plaque is within the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering, like, if you take that and it's within range there, is that kind of like, okay, don't worry about this? Or is there a subsequent test that should be done?
Most likely that's a baseline test. So if you go back in 5 years and have it done, you can see if it's increased or if it's the same to know if you're going down that path, okay?
So you wouldn't necessarily, at this point, you need to have a brain scan.
No, if you're not having any indicators and they've told you that it's within the normal parameter, they're not going to find it. And you don't have other indicators, Other questions? Yes.
Talking with someone who has the Lewy body, which is under control, or medication, how do you deal with them when they think you're against them, when you're doing something and they think you're doing it in spite of them or because, to them?
And again, that's where you kind of pick your battles. It depends on what they're accusing you of. If it's something that doesn't really matter, say, well, I'm really sorry you feel this way. I wish you didn't. I'll just go now, or whatever. If it's something you have to deal with, one time, now, nursing homes can't force someone to take medicine. And, I typically don't force my mom to take medicine, but she does have behaviors at times. And if she has that medicine, she doesn't. So they'll call me and say, your mom's not taking the medicine. And I'll say, okay, put her on the phone. And I said, Mom, you need to take your medicine. They can't make me take my medicine. I said, well, that is true, but I can. And she said, you wouldn't. I said, you know what? We're on our way up there, and I've got Gary with me, and if you don't take your medicine, you're not going to get to visit with Gary. And she said, well, how long till you get here? I said, about 15 minutes. She goes, I'll just wait till you get here. So when I got there, they had her behind the nurse's station. As soon as she saw me, she went, took the medicine, we went and saw Gary. But then another day I was sitting with her and Gary wasn't there, she wouldn't take the medicine. She goes, I'm not taking it, they can't make it. I said, I can. Because I said, yes, I am. You're not doing anything till you take that medicine. That's how important, and how I know if they can get that in her, in 20 minutes she'll be calm and happy. So she took it and she said, I should just throw this in your face, because there was just a little water left. I said, well, let me see your cup. So she handed me the cup with the water, and I drank it, and I gave it back to her. She said, oh, I can't believe you did that. And the nurse had said, that is really quick thinking. So you just have to learn to go with it. And know that you're being the best advocate, and how lucky they are to have you to still visit and to be with them. And like I said, a lot of times the nurse will go and say, Judy, you need to change your clothes. I'm not doing that. They said, well, we're calling your daughter. She has 2. She said, are you referring to the crazy one? And I said, yeah, so she'll do it.
Your mom sounds like a firecracker.
Oh, she's quite the firecracker, yes.
Are there events to watch for that would indicate that maybe you shouldn't leave them alone, or they could do something that would be hurtful to them?
Yeah, there are. There's things like the notes is an indicator that there's some memory issues, that they suddenly stop forgetting to go to church, or they forget a doctor's appointment, or forget things that they always did. That's a big indicator. If you find out that they forgot to turn off the stove, if they put something in the microwave with aluminum on it or something that could have caused a danger, things like that are very, very problematic. So there's a lot of little indicators like that when they're doing little things that aren't really safety issues, or they're forgetting things that they never forgot before. Then you have to wonder how safe it is for them to be home alone. And you can get like a medical alert device or something, but people with dementia, if they're far enough along, won't know to hit the button, so that's not going to help you. There is a company that has a GPS that you slide in the soles of someone's shoes that will track them. And typically people learn very, very young to put their shoes on before they go outside. So sometimes if they're a huge elopement risk, leaving the house, you can put the GPS in the soles, and then you can track them if they disappear. But at that point, they should probably have somebody with them, or be in a facility, a memory care of some type. Yes?
Would you discuss aphasia? Just not being able to communicate at all, and what, how do you know whether that is?
Aphasia is typically a result of a stroke, okay? Aphasia, and it's the ability they can't speak. Now with Alzheimer's, sometimes what you see is it's not necessarily that, sometimes they know what they want to say, they just lost the words, because they lose language. So they don't have the language to tell you what they want, or it comes out and they know as they're saying that that's not really what I want to say, but they can't find the right words. Someone who can't speak with aphasia, well, a lot of times I play 20 questions with them. I'll say, well, is this got something to do with your care? Okay, is it something to do with getting you out of bed? And I just try to narrow it down. But also give them don't rush them. You never want to rush them, or someone with dementia. If you don't have time to sit and let them take the time they need to talk to you, don't go. You don't want to rush them. Give them all the time they need so that they can have, and they will sense that somebody's in a hurry, and it will make them more confused and harder for them to speak or do whatever they need to do.
Yes.
Yes.
My mother-in-law, she had dementia, Alzheimer's, they never really were specific about it. But my ex-husband was living with her, and she called him that man that's living in my house. But she had the sense, I guess, she wrote her checking account number on a piece of paper and walked all the way down a half-mile driveway and put it under a rock so somebody could take her to the bank. You know, she would do that kind of stuff. And she would put her purse in the oven, things like that. He had to get locks to put on the house. That
So she couldn't go out without you knowing it.
Yeah, but he was not a very kind person with her, and he's currently going through the same thing with his current girlfriend. And we're very concerned that he's not gonna be treating her. I'm gonna give him this information, but he won't read it, but,
Yeah.
he-
You brought up a really good point. There's a website, it's called the AlzheimerStore.com, and they have all kinds of gadgets and things that people, you know, locks and all kinds of games and different things you can get for people with dementia, locks for the refrigerator, the cabinets, the medicine, all kinds of stuff that you can get there, so.
I was told one time, and I remember this to this day, if you misplace your keys, don't get real concerned about it. It's when you find the keys and you don't know what they're for.
Yeah.
That's when you need to worry, you know. So, I mean, you know, it's something that I do on a regular basis, probably an hour every day, is I play solitaire on my laptop with a big screen. And I've been doing that for probably about 10 years, and I cannot believe the difference it's made in my memory. Because I can backtrack
Right.
easily.
Yeah, those brain games are really good.
Yeah.
They keep your mind active and they're really good.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming. And Cheryl, thank you so much for all that you do and your wealth of information and staying and answering all of our questions. Really appreciate it. So how about a round of applause for Cheryl? All right, thanks, everybody.